Hey guys, this is God of Politics, and welcome to a brand new video. But before we get started with this video, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also follow me on Twitter and join the Discord. Those are both linked down in the description. But in today's video, I do want to talk about the Bellwether counties. Now, pretty much all of the Bellwether counties are gone, with the exception of one Bellwether county that is left. And you can see here on this Wikipedia page, it says election bellwether counties in the United States are counties that vote in alignment with the country as a whole in the United States presidential elections, so that the county votes for the candidate who ultimately wins the election. The strongest bellwether counties are those that back the winning candidates in all or almost all elections. There are a total of 3,141 counties or county equivalents in the United States. Alaska and Louisiana don't use counties. They don't use counties, but county equivalents. So we're going to base it off of that. But it does say, does mark out these significant bellwethers over time. And you can see the bellwethers that were gone in 2020, there were a number of them. You saw the same thing in 2016. A number of bellwether counties were gone in 2016, and a number of them are gone in 2020 as well. So if we do look at the one bellwether county that is left, it is Clam County, Washington. It last voted for the losing candidate in 1976 when it did vote for Gerald Ford over Jimmy Carter, who won that election in 1976. But if we do look at the election this time, we can see that Clam County is a county in Washington. It's in northwest Washington. It swung 6.2% Democrat. And while it's not in the Seattle area itself, I wouldn't consider it a rural area, and I'll be talking about those rural areas a lot in this video, but I wouldn't necessarily consider it a rural area because it is close to Seattle, and you could say it's rural, but the rural areas in Washington vote more like the rural areas do in the Northeast, which is more Democrat, so that's what we're going to be talking about. A lot of it in this video is related to that, but then we're going to be going through, the number of bellwether counties that were gone this election. What is the reason that they're gone, and what does it show about our elections as a whole? Well, you can see, looking at a bunch of them, a lot of them are in the Midwest. You see a number here in Wisconsin, 4 in Wisconsin. You can see a number here in Michigan as well. You see a couple in Ohio. You see a couple in, the biggest one here is actually Vigo County, Indiana. This broke the streak of correct predictions, which dated back to 1956 and was second only to that of Valencia County, New Mexico. As such, this was the county's first time backing a losing candidate since 1952. If we do go to Vigo County, which is in Indiana, this is a very rural county. It's over here. It was won by Donald Trump by just under 15 percentage points. He won it by 14.7 percentage points. And while it did, trend 0.3% Democrat, it was basically a nothing trend, and Donald Trump won the county. But this is probably the best bellwether county, at least in, this modern time. So it is quite interesting that it did not vote for the winning candidate, but there's a very clear explanation from this. If you look at the swings in Indiana, you basically see that most rural areas swung towards Donald Trump, and most of the suburbs swung heavily to Joe Biden. I mean, you're looking at ridiculous swings. Hamilton County 12 points, Boone County 11 points, Hendricks County almost 10 points, Marion County, which is Indianapolis itself, won 7 points, Johnson County 8 points, Hancock County 7 points. You can go further out. Fort Wayne with Allen County here swung 8 points Democrat. So the suburban areas are swinging towards Joe Biden this election, and then the rural areas swung towards Donald Trump, and that is why Donald Trump was able to win Vigo County again. Whereas if we go back to 2012 and we look at Vigo County and we click on Indiana here, which was a state that Mitt Romney did flip in 2016, was actually won by Barack Obama in 2008. Joe Biden's the vice president. Obama still won Vigo County, Indiana, and while it voted a lot further to the right than it did in 2008, Barack Obama won it by 16 percentage points. In 2012, Barack Obama won it by 0.9 percentage points. It still did vote with the winner, and most of the surrounding areas did vote heavily for Donald Trump, but you can see there's no urban areas in Illinois that's along the border here. Vigo County is just one of these rural counties that did narrowly vote for Barack Obama, and Barack Obama did do a lot better in these rural areas. While you can see the map is mostly red, Barack Obama did do a lot better in a lot of these areas. If you compare that to 2016, for example, you can see there's a lot more red, particularly if you look at the, Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota area. If you look here for a second, and then you also do look here, you can see that there's a lot more red in 2016 than there was in 2012, and that is because of that rural trend. And something to note about the 2020 election: Joe Biden won the election with winning at the least amount of counties of any winning presidential candidate in history. I believe the number was around 17% of counties that he won, and a lot of these counties he won were actually in the Northeast. If you look at some of these counties in the Northeast, Joe Biden won a lot of counties in New York. He won a lot of counties in Connecticut. He won all 3 in Rhode Island, all of them in Massachusetts, all of them except 2 in New Hampshire, all of them except 1 in Vermont, which actually, Essex County, Vermont, is actually a bellwether here. It's another rural county, more conservative than the rest of the state as a whole. But, most of the counties Joe Biden actually won were in the Northeast. He won a good amount in California, in rural areas that are just generally more Democrat. But most states, states like Illinois, states like Minnesota, states like, a good example is Pennsylvania as well. You have a situation where Democrats are mostly winning in these urban areas. You can see in Pennsylvania, it's a lot of red, and a small couple counties and pockets of blue here in the Pennsylvania area. You can see the same thing if you go over here to the state of Ohio, which Donald Trump did win by 8 percentage points, but you can see 45% of the vote comes from just a couple counties over here. And you see the same thing in Illinois. This is a state that was won by Biden by 17 percentage points here, but he only won a number of counties, and most of the vote that he got comes from the Chicago suburbs over here. And it's really showing you that there is a real urban rural divide that is forming, and it's been forming for a number of years. Just like how the suburbs have been trending Democrat for a number of years, the rural areas have been trending Republican for a number of years. This happened virtually right after Barack Obama was elected. You saw the 2010 midterms where Republicans won in states they had not really won in a long time, and they won back a lot of the voters that they had lost in 2008, and they won a lot of those trending areas to the Republican Party, and that rural trend has continued. If you want to go to the election in 2012 and you look at the shift from 2008, you see huge shifts, and the only areas you don't see huge shifts are some areas down in the south here, areas like Mississippi, but basically the whole area, the whole part of the country trended towards the right, and the areas that didn't trend as much are those urban areas. And so that is one of the important things to note, because if you go back to 2008 and you look at the swing map from 2004 to 2008, pretty much everything was bluer than it was in 2004. The only state with an exception to that is really a state like Oklahoma or Arkansas, where you have a lot of rural areas. But really, the rural areas are becoming much more Republican. This is 2016. The 2016 map, you can see most areas of the country are basically very, very dark red, and Democrats only win a number of counties here, and so that urban and rural divide is becoming just as stark as the racial divide between white voters, which are overwhelmingly Republican, and black voters, which are overwhelmingly Democrat, Latino voters, which are still overwhelmingly Democrat despite Trump's improvement with them this year, which, you've seen improvements for Republican candidates amongst Latino voters before. In 2004, you saw George Bush got 45% of the Latino vote, but Latino voters do still vote overwhelmingly for Democratic candidates. And so you do see a situation where the rural areas are becoming even more Republican and the urban and suburban areas are becoming even more Democrat. And so this is going to cause a lot of division in the future. And if you want to look at most of these counties here, we can just click on a number of them. Wood County, Ohio. This is a rural county. That is a state that is trending very Democrat. You can look at, Westmoreland County, which is in Virginia, another more rural county that trended towards the Republican Party. Valencia County, New Mexico, which has the longest streak of any county. Well, it did have different borders or something, so it's kind of disputed, but they did have the longest streak. It says running all the way back from 1952 until 2016. As such, this was the county's first time backing a losing candidate since 1948. They were also wrong. That's in a rural area. Shiawassee County of Michigan is also in a rural area. Most of these areas don't have many people in them. The only the population of this county is only 68,000, which is not very much. You can look at Sawyer County, Wisconsin, which is another rural area, up in areas Democrats used to do very well in. It only has 16,000 people, but it's in an area Democrats used to do well in. Bill Clinton won these areas, even Barack Obama won these areas, so they did used to do well in these areas, and you can see a number of them in Wisconsin, all in rural areas. You can see another one like Essex County, Vermont, which you looked at before. You can look at Bramer County, Iowa. This is in northeastern Iowa, the part of Iowa that has trended most towards the Republican Party, as I showed you before. If you look at the state of Iowa, you can see northeast Iowa is very blue here in 2012. You go to 2016, pretty much all of those areas are Republican. So that's part of that rural trend towards the Republican Party, and I don't really see this trend stopping. Maybe if the Democrats ran, a more, maybe it's hard to tell because, most of those Democrats that would have done well in the rural areas, like Bill Clinton, are not really in the party anymore. At least people are much older than they used to be. They wouldn't be running for president anymore. Joe Biden's kind of that candidate that was supposed to win back some of those working class areas, but he was never going to counteract that rural trend. He was always going to do better in the suburbs. That's what we expected him to do, and that's what he ended up doing. So Democrats really don't have much hope in winning back these rural areas. Rural Democrats are pretty much gone. I mean, you look at the House results from this elections. You had Colin Peterson, one of the last rural Democrats in a district Trump won by 30 points. He was wiped out this election by 13 percentage points. You don't really have many rural Democrats left. I guess you have, a couple in like Mississippi, Alabama, where there's black people living in rural areas, but that's, not many of those districts do exist. Most of the Democrats come from urban areas, and they come from suburban areas. The only, again, there's not, Maine's 2nd district is an exception to that rule. Jared Golden is a good candidate for that district, but you don't have many of those good candidates for the Democrats anymore. And if you're looking at the prospects of the future, Donald Trump is most likely going to run again in 2024. He's not going to win this election. And when he runs, I do think he is going to run in 2024. He'll basically get the nomination as soon as he enters the race. And when he does run in 2024, he is going to accelerate that trend. Because if you look at the shift map, you can see those rural areas trended Republican in most cases, and you can see the suburban areas trended Democrat. And while there's exceptions to that, Democrats did better in areas like Michigan because those areas that were more Democrat in the past. In a state like Michigan, Barack Obama won that state by 17 percentage points in 2008. But you look at a state like Georgia, for example, a lot of rural areas trended Republican. Same thing in Tennessee, same thing in North Carolina. So there's room for Republicans to gain in these rural areas. And, speaking on Trump in 2024, Trump is part of the reason that these trends have been accelerated so much. You go back to 2012, Mitt Romney did very well in the suburbs, and he did decent in the rural areas, as I showed you from the swing map. But Donald Trump really accelerated that trend by doing even better in the rural areas and a lot worse in the suburbs in 2016. And then the same thing happened in 2020. He did well in the rural areas despite losing ground in a lot of them because he just did not have as good of an election. But he also gained ground in the rural areas and he lost ground in the suburbs. If he runs again in 2024, expect those suburban trends in states like Georgia and Arizona and Texas to continue. Even in states like Florida and Virginia, those trends, and Minnesota, the list goes on and on. Those trends will continue in the suburban areas. And I think those trends in the rural areas will continue. So you're going to see a very polarized map that is showing signs, it's an indication that the country is very divided, which we know it is very divided. So looking at all these bellwether counties, that is the reason that they failed this election, because most of these bellwether counties are in rural areas. And part of this shift that we've seen over the past couple of years is that rural areas have become much more Republican. So they voted correctly in 2016 because they were part of that real trend towards Donald Trump when Donald Trump won the election. But when they stayed Republican, or even got more Republican in some cases, when Donald Trump lost the election this year, their streak was broken and they lost their bellwether status. So we only have one more bellwether county. It is sort of a rural county, but it's also in an area that Democrats have historically done better in. So, that is the reason that the bellwether counties failed this election. That's why they're gone. And I expect that, trend to continue, where we're not going to have many bellwether counties because the country is just going to be so divided. And we're not going to have many shifts itself. We're just going to have suburban areas becoming more Democrat, rural areas becoming Republican, but those areas are already blue and red to begin with now. So, it's going to be not the best future when it comes to the polarization of our politics. I don't think that it is going to get much better, but, we can always hope, and we will see how that turns out. So, thank you all for watching this video. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also, follow me on Twitter and join the Discord. Those are both linked down in the description. But again, guys, thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you guys later.